What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we're going to be breaking down the character, the master of Kung Fu himself, the legendary Shang Chi. We're going to be talking about this character, their history, their origin, their abilities, everything you need to know about this character in order to hold a conversation about them and be prepared for their upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe debut. We'll be talking about all of that and more right now, but first, let's hit that intro.
Word to wise, grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple eyes. You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Shang Chi, created by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin, first appeared in Special Marvel Edition number 15 in 1973. Shang-Chi originally had a very problematic origin when he first debuted. He was the secret son of Sax Rohmer's Fu Manchu, a character that many associate with harmful Asian stereotypes and what used to be referred to as yellow fear at the time. Fu Manchu would conceive Shang-Chi with a random concubine, and Shang would later be groomed to take over Fu Manchu's evil empire. He would be trained in multiple martial arts techniques, trained to use various weapons, eventually becoming a perfect weapon himself. Eventually, Shang would be employed as a personal hitman for his father, something that would become Fu Manchu's greatest mistake due to Shang-Chi learning the truth about his father from a target he was intended to kill. This led to Shang turning on his father and working with yet another Sax Rohmer creation, MI6's Sir Dennis Nayland Smith, a longtime rival of Fu Manchu, and they both came together to bring the evil empire down once and for all. Shang-Chi is a normal human being with no powers whatsoever. He is, however, a specially trained martial artist since the day he was born and is literally the master of Kung Fu in the Marvel Comics universe. Most of his combat stylings are based on the martial art Wushu, a blanket term for many different Chinese martial arts styles. His prowess in combat is so potent that he has not only defeated some of the world's best fighters, but also defeated some of Earth's mightiest heroes and villains as well. One particular character of note, he has fought Iron Fist to a stalemate, and despite this, according to Black Panther, Shang is still a better fighter than Danny Rand. Having trained since birth, he is in peak human physical condition. His strength, speed, agility, stamina, and endurance is the highest a human beings can possibly be without having artificial enhancements or superhuman capabilities. Shang is so fast, he can dodge bullets almost effortlessly and can catch nearly any projectile thrown at him, and in most cases, even send it back. He's even been depicted to deflect bullets in a style similar to DC Comics' Wonder Woman thanks to a pair of bracers that he wears on his forearms. He has even used these to deflect sword strikes as well. As mentioned before that he was trained in the use of various weapons, Shang can use virtually any weapon that he can pick up. It doesn't even matter if it's a makeshift weapon or a traditionally made weapon. He is skilled in the use of the bow staff, butterfly swords, the Chinese double-edged sword, oxtail swords, shurikens, kali sticks, 3-sectional staffs, and both double and single nunchaku. And even once, he had a specialized repulsor-powered set of nunchaku gifted to him by Iron Man that could fire off repulsor blasts with a taser-like effect and even helped him focus his chi more effectively. Shang's real bread and butter, though, is his ability to manipulate and channel chi. This gives him an edge over most people. This has allowed him to increase the impact of his combat strikes, allowing him to punch through solid iron. He can also use his chi to withstand powerful attacks and weather the pain of any strike he cannot successfully defend against. Even using his chi manipulation abilities to slow down the energy flowing through his body to ward off pain and even the effects of bleeding to death or even being poisoned. He can also use his chi to increase his already considerable strength. Without using his chi, Shang can lift upwards of 350 pounds with zero effort. However, when he uses his chi to enhance his strength, it increases to levels bordering on superhuman. Though Shang-Chi has long since left his life with MI6 behind, he still retains his training in espionage tactics and still occasionally helps out with MI6 related missions. Shang is also a skilled gymnast and is very knowledgeable in the location of pressure points in the human body and knows exactly which ones can injure, incapacitate, paralyze, or even kill. Shang is very well versed in Eastern philosophy as well as being fluent in multiple languages including English, Chinese, and Mandarin, both modern and ancient. He even knows a little French. As mentioned earlier, Shang-Chi originally existed in Marvel Comics continuity as the son of Fu Manchu, a character who was problematic in his own right, but his connection to Fu Manchu has long since been dropped, especially since Marvel no longer owns the rights to that character. Fu Manchu was then replaced by a new character, Zhang Zhu. Speaking of his father, what's talked about least is Shang-Chi's mother. Yes, Shang's mother was a random, unnamed concubine, but what many tend to forget is that Shang-Chi is not 100% Chinese. Shang's mother was in fact a white woman. This is of particular interest due to how the Chinese community and many uninformed Americans regarded the casting of Simu Liu, a Chinese-Canadian actor to play the character of Shang-Chi. Many claimed a native-born Chinese actor should have played the character, but what many failed to understand is that Shang is only half Chinese to begin with. That said, the Chinese community is well within their right to regard the character of Shang-Chi in much the way they do, seeing as how the character has been depicted and portrayed in his early beginnings, though we'll get back to that here in just a moment. While we're talking about parentage, he is also not an only child. While he does have a couple of half-brothers and sisters, he in fact does have an actual full-blooded sister named Zhang Xihua, aka Sister Hammer, who was introduced in 2020's Shang-Chi miniseries. A younger sibling to Shang, she was banished to the House of the Deadly Hammer when Shang and Xihua accidentally found one of their father's secret laboratory experiments. This led to her being exiled and Shang being told she was quotey fingers executed for insubordination. The two would not reunite until they were both adults, with only Sister Hammer, now a more villainous character, knowing the real truth after all these years. Shang-Chi has rarely found himself on the wrong side of things, but during the Civil War story arc, things were a hair different. Shang-Chi aligned himself with the Daughters of the Dragon, Misty Knight, and Colleen Wing, who were operating a Heroes for Hire outfit that essentially acted as superhero bail bondsmen and wranglers for Tony Stark. Speaking of teams, Shang-Chi has found himself a member of both the Avengers and New Avengers, as well as Steve Rogers' Secret Avengers team. He has also been a member of the Protectors, the Marvel Knights, the Celestial Order of Sifan, MI5 and MI6, the Chinese Triads, Dennis Nayland Smith's freelance restorations private security firm, the Underground Resistance from during the Secret Empire story arc, and last but not least, the new Agents of Atlas. He's also a member of the recently surfaced Five Weapons Society and the House Champions, where he is designated as the champion of the House of the Deadly Hand. During Jonathan Hickman's Avengers Volume 5, number 38, Shang-Chi used his chi manipulation abilities to tap into a power that we haven't seen him use since. He tapped into energies from the Origin Bomb in Kobe, Japan, and essentially created multiple shadow clones of himself. No one knows if this is something he could ever replicate again if desired. Also during Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, Shang-Chi also used PEM particles to grow to giant size and soloed an actual dragon in hand-to-hand combat. Shang also helped out Peter Parker during the Spider Island incident, helping Spidey train in martial arts to make up for losing his spider sense at the time. Shang even used special gloves and boots to help him mimic Spidey's wall-clinging abilities to further help him train Spider-Man. This would eventually lead to Shang helping Peter develop a special martial arts fighting style that was unique to him and took full advantage of Spidey's superhuman abilities. During this time in the Spider Island storyline, Shang would even develop spider powers of his own identical to Spider-Man when he was infected with the spider virus. He would even later grow 2 extra pairs of arms the way Peter Parker did so many years ago, and then later turn into an even more monstrous version of the Man Spider. Though this was quickly cured thanks to Iron Fist using his own chi to purge Shang Chi of the virus. Shang-Chi recently wielded the Phoenix Force during Jason Aaron's Avengers run due to a tournament to determine the next host of the Phoenix. This tournament allowed each of its participants to use the Phoenix Force in combat against their equally empowered opponents. However, despite being disqualified from the tournament due to lacking any darkness in his heart, something that was posited by Black Panther, this was not before he simply and calmly meditated during his battle with Hyperion, while Hyperion himself freaked out and launched into a panic attack over how much power he now wielded. Shang also beat Captain America in hand-to-hand combat, though this was also right before he was disqualified. This is something I probably should have brought up earlier, but Shang-Chi's name translates from Chinese to mean the rising and advancing of the spirit. Speaking of the meaning of Shang-Chi's name and how it reflects on his character, Shang-Chi sees himself as a bodhisattva, someone who is on the path towards Buddhahood but has yet to attain it himself. Though, don't let this fool you into thinking Shang is a man above killing. He's killed on numerous occasions, though he does in fact detest the idea of killing anyone. Like many characters of color in mainstream comics, and well, comics in general, his skin color has often been mishandled. In the 70s, his skin was often depicted as being stark gold or bronze, basically a color no actual Asian person would ever be in real life. This is often cited as being a result of the poor color selections in the printing process back in the 70s, and hasn't been much of an issue since color technology in the printing process has advanced significantly over the years, but is still a blemish on Shang-Chi's legacy. Many don't know this, but in 1995, Shang-Chi almost joined the Milestone Media Decoderverse and would have been a part of a lineup of miniseries, one of which would have been written by the late, great Dwayne McDuffie. These stories would have had Shang-Chi traveling the globe and further breaking down his father's criminal enterprises abroad, as well as using guns, something Shang-Chi had never really used up until that point. The project was never pursued any further due to Tom DeFalco, who at the time was editor-in-chief, being replaced, and Mark Grunwald passing away a year later. Both Tom and Mark were the main heads at Marvel responsible for pushing the project to happen. Now, I will admit, this doesn't necessarily mean that Shang-Chi would have been a part of the Milestone Media Decoderverse, but his comics would have been produced by Milestone Media due to Marvel outsourcing the project, and very likely would have led to a crossover. Despite being around as long as Shang-Chi has, he has had very few media appearances outside of comics, but thanks to the upcoming Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings film, this will likely change. As we're already aware, Simu Liu will be portraying Shang-Chi in the upcoming MCU film, where his origin has been altered again to be a son of Wenwu, played by Hong Kong film legend Tony Leung. And this version of Shang-Chi's father will be the true Mandarin in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You might be surprised to learn that the role of Shang-Chi almost went to upcoming Mortal Kombat star Louis Tan, who has played 2 different Marvel characters in the past, one of which being Zhao Chang in the Marvel Netflix series Iron Fist Season 1, and he also portrayed Shatterstar in the movie Deadpool 2. Speaking of actors who almost played Shang-Chi, Stan Lee had planned on having Brandon Lee, son of the legendary legendary Bruce Lee portray Shang-Chi in the late 1980s, and had even met with both Brandon Lee and Bruce Lee's widow, Linda Lee, to talk about the project. This is especially interesting because Shang-Chi was made as an homage to the legendary Bruce Lee, and oftentimes is depicted as looking just like the late great martial arts icon, even using the same style of martial arts combat. You may also be surprised to know that Marvel's Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings is not the first attempt at a Shang-Chi film. Blade director Stephen Norrington planned on making a Shang-Chi film titled The Hands of Shang-Chi in 2001, but nothing ever came of it. Legendary fight choreographer and director Yun Wu Ping also made an attempt during 2003 to make a Shang-Chi film that saw director Ang Lee step on board as producer. Shang-Chi was also one of the properties Marvel planned to make a film on when Marvel signed a deal with Paramount Pictures in 2006 that was ultimately the launching point towards the MCU as we know it today, although Marvel Studios would be created shortly after this, and that deal would ultimately fall through. As for other appearances, he's only been known to appear in the mobile video game Marvel Future Fight in 2016, and he has a little golden book called Shang-Chi, written by Michael Shen, that released this year as a tie-in to the upcoming film. Now, normally when I do this, I like to pick an actor who I think could portray this character on the big or small screen, and honestly, I am actually really sold on Simu Liu playing this character in the MCU, so I'm not going to pick someone to play a character who's already playing it. Also, I do want to point out, though, I am kind of disappointed, though, knowing that Louis Tan almost got this role, because I think he also would have made a good Shang-Chi, but ultimately, I am very happy with the casting of Simu Liu. Another thing I like to do when I make videos like these is I also like to give up some recommended reading, and of course I'm going to recommend you check out Special Marvel Edition number 15 for his first appearance back in 1971 by Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin. I'm also going to recommend you check out Special Marvel Edition number 16 as well, and these two comics bleed straight into Shang-Chi getting his own series titled The Master of Kung Fu number 17 by Steve Englehart and Paul Gulacy in 1974, and this once again picks up right where Special Marvel Edition number 16 left off and continues all the way to Master of Kung Fu number 125. I also recommend you check out 2014's Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 1 through 4 by Mike Benson and Ten Ang Huat, which is basically a murder mystery that sees Shang-Chi working for MI6 and hunting down the killer of his former lover, Leiko Wu. I also will recommend you check out 2020's Shang-Chi number 1 through 5 by Gene Luan Yang and DK Ruin. This is actually going to be the miniseries that introduces Shang-Chi's long-lost sister, Sister Hammer, and is a very nice little 5-issue run that I kind of wish continued on as a main series, but you know, we don't all get what we want. I will also recommend you check out 2021's The Legend of Shang-Chi one-shot by Alyssa Wong and Andy Tong to see Shang-Chi getting drugged back into MI6 shenanigans and also taking on the X-Men villain, Lady Deathstrike. Once again, Shang-Chi, great character who I've always kind of thought was really interesting, and I always wondered why Marvel had this strange fascination with trying to make Iron Fist a thing, you know, as a solo outing when you had Shang-Chi just sitting right there waiting to happen. And I'm even more excited knowing and now finally seeing the first trailer for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings to know that Marvel is actually handling this for the most part incredibly well. And that said, I think that this character should be a bigger thing. Yes, they had problematic origins. Many characters who are not white in the Marvel Comics universe, and hell, even some that are white in the Marvel Comics universe and comics in general, sometimes they do just have problematic origins, but sometimes things can happen, times can change, and people can take a character that otherwise is kind of a stain, kind of an eyesore to look at because of their problematic nature, and they can turn that character into something special that rises above the stereotypes and the small-mindedness, and I think that Marvel found a way with Shang-Chi to do just that. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, Hulk smash that like button and make sure to share this video all over the internet with all your friends so they can know how you leveled up your comic book big brain in regards to the Marvel Comics character Shang-Chi, the Master of Kung Fu. On your way out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you think about Shang Chi. Have you always known about him, or are you today years old finding out about him? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.